Previously on Dear Emily.
And one of the things, something that you also share that I tell people all the time is, just because you're married doesn't mean that your marriage is healthy. Because there are literally people who are just coexisting for the sake of their families.
Cause my love came crashing down. I don't know if it ever will get back up again. I need someone to talk to. I'll say what I'm going through. Tired of complications.
Hey, it's your girl Emily, and welcome to Dear Emily. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about understanding the nice guy myth. Okay, with an amazing speaker, a pastor, minister, and someone who is very important to me. Okay, he's also a mentor in my life. It's someone I'm very privileged to know, and I'm so honored that he's going to be speaking to us tonight about the nice guy myth and what it is. And I'm not even going to do justice to his introduction. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself. But I am just so honored to welcome tonight Brother Prater, who's going to introduce himself properly. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Brother Prater. First of all, I am so honored to be here and to even be able to share the platform. Even if just to be in the audience, I would be honored. My name is Brother Prater. I'm all the way from Dallas, Texas. And I'm minister as well as I'm in law enforcement. Lord bless, say the same. I'll be eligible to retire in 48 more hours. Yes, so May 31st, 3:30 p.m., my alarm clock will be going off. I'll be eligible to retire, but I may stay a few more, but just thank God for the options. And I am a father of one. He's 17 years old, beautiful sweetheart. My I call him my bodyguard. And in actuality, which even leading up to the topic of the nice guy syndrome, I've always called my son my bodyguard ever since he was born. Even when I would when I would carry him around or walk him around with me at the stores or whatever, I'd be in my uniform and I would always reference him as my bodyguard. And people will often laugh thinking that I was just saying that as a joke. But in actuality, I've always called him my bodyguard because I anointed him to be my accountability partner. As me being a father, I wanted my son to be my accountability partner. So that way, if there's anything I want to do, if there's any place I may want to go, I always have to look at it in the lens of what my son, would I give my son permission to do the same? Or would my son be embarrassed for me to do or say those things or watch those things? So in every aspect, I've always anointed him as my bodyguard. So I have one son named Dylan Prater, and and also I'm the third of 5 kids, and yes, and also along with being in ministry and being single, just being aware of being single and being in ministry, oftentimes I've always heard, even growing up, that nice guys finish last, or, what's the use of doing good when all the bad people are getting the rewards? I've heard so many of that. Matter of fact, when I accepted my calling to preach, there was a female minister that came to me and told me, well, now we know you ministry and stuff, but ain't nothing wrong with, you having a little something on the side or whatever. And so I've heard a lot of that stuff, And so, with that being said, as well as being law enforcement, I've seen a lot of bad representatives, and I've heard a lot of the young ladies that work up there, they get so frustrated because, they saying that they're looking for a man, but yet and still they feel like they don't see any. And so with that being said, when I heard about your show, the first thing that came to my spirit was we need to address the lies that might have been out pertaining to nice guys. A lot of them, they feel like there are no more good men. We've heard that there are no more good men. I've heard some say that all the good men are either married or dead. And there are some young ladies that may be out there, especially within the church. They're asking God, they're seeking God. God, I'm doing all I can. I'm waiting, I'm trusting in you. But do I have to settle for less than what you want for me to have? And so, along with, speaking to the young men that are out there who are doing what they're supposed to do, trusting God and obeying God and keeping themselves, I also want to encourage the young ladies who may be waiting for such a man to let them know that there is such a man that does exist. And you're not waiting for nothing. You're not trusting God for nothing, but you're trusting God, not just for something, but for somebody, your husband.
So. Okay, you literally you introduce yourself and you introduce yourself. But because you're passionate about it, right? So I didn't want to just Brother Prater, wait. But this is this is good stuff. And you said something earlier. I was gonna stop you. You said you're single. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you ready to mingle, Brother Prater?
Depending upon their definition of mingle, I will say this. I tell people there's nothing wrong with you being saved, filled with the Holy Ghost, yet have a healthy courtship that does not involve sin. It's possible. It's possible. Matter of fact, I will say this. I tell people, I'm not staying in shape for nothing. I saw your father. Well, I saw father number 1 and father number 2 with the 6-pack and the Hulkamania muscles. I said, yeah, I'm staying in shape also. All of this will be for the glory of God and my wife.
And your wife.
Amen. Lights.
You talked about father number 1, but you didn't say much about father number 2.
Oh yeah. I said father number 1 and father number 2.
Oh,
yeah. I don't want to exclude them. Yeah, they're both included. It's a package deal. Anointed package deal. Yeah.
Oh man. No, this is good. Brother Prater, let's get into this. What are some of the lies behind the nice guy myth or syndrome, as people would say? Because me as a woman, now I'm wondering, are there nice guys out there, especially in the church, and then you from a pastoral perspective as well, and law enforcement officer, you're almost retiring within 48 hours. So, congratulations for that. But many women, I'm sure, are wondering okay, Brother Prater, you're saying all this good stuff, but are there actually nice guys out there? And what is the definition of a nice guy? And help us understand what this nice guy syndrome myth is all about.
Yes, thank you. First, there is such a thing as a nice guy, a godly man. Oftentimes we ask people when they are looking for someone, what is your definition of a good man?
Mm.
I always say this. We've heard a lot of young ladies often say, well, I'm waiting on my Boaz. I'm waiting on my Boaz. But I asked them, you waiting on your Boaz, but are you Ruth material?
Okay, now.
See, you waiting and looking for your Boaz, but your Boaz ain't who God has for you, because Boaz ain't your man. That's Ruth's man. you know, God has someone that may know your weaknesses as well as your strengths, and to nurture that, because to be honest with you, there are some, they may see my personality and they may love, but then there are others, they may like, oh, he get on my nerves, he needs to sit down somewhere or whatever. And they're both saved. They both could be in church. So the thing is, what I always tell people is, God not gonna tell you who to choose. He'll just teach you how to choose. And so also to be able to be, if you want to say qualified for such a person, you have to really examine yourself to make sure that you are qualified, and make sure that you examine yourself, be real and be honest, and make sure that you're able to be healed, so that way you can recognize such a person that you may desire. Because sometimes they may want a particular guy, but come to find out they want him for a selfish reason. And so with that, the myth that they may say about good men, some of the myths that I've heard, and this is from personal experience, I just say it throughout my life. Some of the myths I've heard was, well, they're henpecked. Nice guys are henpecked. Nice guys are pushovers. They don't have a backbone. No, they're passive. They're gullible. They're the ones that you can just walk over and use. They won't speak up on anything. But in actuality, that nice guy, or I'll say that nice guy, or I would say a real man of God, he knows when to speak and he knows when to shut up. He knows when to fight, and he knows how to pick and choose his battles, because there are some incidents that does not require for you to pull out your weapon. Sometimes we may have to use what we call verbal judo, being able to de-escalate the situation. Oftentimes, that's the person that oftentimes bring peace or promote peace. And so sometimes when they say about the nice guy, or if you want to say the stigma that may be out there pertaining to nice guys, it has gotten a bad rep in society. There was a show that this hit me. There was a show back in the day, used to be called My Wife and Kids, with Damon Wayans and Tisha Campbell. That was an entertaining show, but I forgot the daughter name, but the daughter ended up dating a guy that was known to be the preacher boy. And he was a nice sweetheart of a guy, but he ended up being the butt of the joke. He was the one that, because of it being a TV show, I know ratings, sales, and everything, but it just shows that stigma that nice guy or that church guy has. And a lot of times it's not good. And so that's what the nice guys or the good guys that are out here we're facing. And so sometimes it does get discouraging when there's someone that you like and they may think, well, you need to get a backbone, but the main thing that nice guys always think about is being respectful and a gentleman to a lady. And so we may open the door, and I've had this to happen. I may open the door for a young lady. I don't need no man to open no door for me. You know, I remember this was maybe in my 20s. I had there was a young lady that told me that if I don't hit her, I don't love her.
That doesn't add up.
Yeah. That dog don't hunt. That dog wouldn't hunt, you know. And so we just heard so much, and oftentimes those bad boys are the ones get the attention, or the girls that we may have tried to seek after, you know. I have to say that because this hit me when we mentioned about the show. There was a young lady that I was dating back in '96, and she broke up with me. She told me that she was with someone else the day before. Long story short, I was going to surprise her and take her to a picnic, and I just kept seeing things in my spirit. I just kept seeing things, and I was actually seeing her with another guy, and I'm not going to describe because that person may be watching. But,
we don't want that.
But I end up seeing just like a TV screen. I saw a particular image of a guy, and I was like, wow, I really didn't know the guy. And so I called her, she never answered the phone, and I was invited to go to this church service to play. And I went to the church service, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I had a horrible time. I began to start weeping. I began to start seeing things. My spirit was just grieved. And so I called her later that night. She answered the phone, and she told me she was at the house waiting on me all day. And I'm like, no, she wouldn't lie to me. And so I asked her, when was the last time she was intimate with another man? And it scared her. She told me, hey, you don't ask no woman no question like that. So I was thinking, hey, we're dating, you know, there's no problem. So she asked me if she can call me in the morning. And so she called me at the exact time. She called me at 11:02 a.m. It was April the 1st, 1996, on a Monday morning. She called me and she said that she had to come clean because she was with someone. And she told me who that person was, and it was exactly that person that I saw in the spirit. And so long story short, she said that, and she said, well, you deserve someone better. And remember, I asked you if you can go shopping with me. And you said, well, we can go shopping, but let's go to church first. Because she asked me on a Sunday. She said, you deserve someone that's in church. You deserve someone that's going to do the right thing. And as bad as I was hurting, the funny thing was she saw more in me what I saw in myself. She was honest. And I ended up running into her probably a year and a half ago. She didn't recognize me because we had on masks. But long story short, I ended up becoming good friends with her husband, the one that she cheated on me with. Wow. And I overheard him talking, man, my wife, man, she taking all my money. I said, Lord, thank you for unanswered prayers. And so, long story short, in the beginning, she may have told me she wanted a good man, but her actions displayed she didn't deserve one. And so I just appreciate her being able to be open and honest enough with me. And even, like I said, to see my potentials, even if I didn't see it, or if I had stayed and settled with her, because I would have stayed with her if she didn't reveal those things to me.
Wow. Brother Prater, I'm here listening. I know that the people who are going to be watching will be just as intrigued by the stories that you're sharing, because it's about you, your life. It relates to your life, but also the whole nice guy myth and the lies that people hear all the time, and all of that stuff. We will continue this conversation, but in the meantime, I want us to take a quick break and we will be right back. We have Brother Prater with us all the way from Dallas, Texas. So if you're watching from Dallas, Texas, Brother Prater is here with us tonight. Law enforcement. He's been in there for 25 years, and he's a pastor and a minister. So we're hearing both sides. We're hearing from him, but also from a pastoral perspective on his experiences of the nice guy syndrome or the nice guy myth, and understanding that aspect and how it can even affect relationships like he has been sharing. But we will be right back on the show, Dear Emily. In the meantime, you can send us stars. Every star count, as well as your donation. Every dollar count. The number will be on the screen. You can send us your donation, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Dear Emily. Today's episode, we are talking about the nice guy myth. And I know a lot of you that's watching is like, I'm really learning a lot. But Brother Prater is going to take us more on this journey of the lies that's been told about the nice guy myth and what nice guys can do to not finish last, as we've all been hearing, but to finish first and to get the good women. Brother Prater is with us all the way from Texas, Dallas, Texas. So he's representing Texas tonight. Okay. We are going to get right back into our conversation with Brother Prater. Brother Prater, once again, welcome and thank you for being on Dear Emily show.
Thank you. I'm honored.
No, I'm honored. I'm honored, sir. So kudos to you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So you said something about the idea that people have that nice guys, they finish last, right? Nice guys finish last. And even when it comes to the church, because you emphasize on godly men and all those things, and some people might have this narrative of there might not be even good men in churches nowadays. And they're trying to figure out, like, where are the men? Where are the good men that would open the door, that would take a woman out to dinner without wanting to have sex, right? Without wanting more. So some women are really looking out there for the nice guys. And I will say this, Brother Prater, and I don't know if you've had women, even in churches, to be able to say, you know what, they got some church brothers that might as well be with Lucifer. Because there's nothing nice about them. But every time you hear the word church or anything that has to do with Christian in this case, it's supposed to be, the word is supposed to be synonymous to someone who is holy, someone who is living a righteous life and things like that. And in this case, for men, I've heard a lot of stories of women in churches who have really been burned by men in churches, and they thought that they were nice guys, right? And then when they finally got in the relationship, then the real color outside of the church and off the pulpit, even pastors off the pulpit, then they really show themselves. So I want you to talk a little bit about that double standard also when it comes to the church. And the reality is, even when it comes to church, yes, there are guys in church and most of them might not be nice, right? But there are good men out there, and I'm taking your word for it that there are good men still out there. Okay, so I need you to tell us a little bit more about that, but from the Christian perspective, the church aspect of that.
Yes, there were some still good men and godly men out there. A lot of them, they've been hurt, so now it's like we hear women who keep their guards up or have their guards up, but there are some guys that have their guards up because they've been hurt within the church also. So it's like, who do they trust? So you have to earn their trust. They're very more observant. They've been fooled, they've been tricked. And sometimes they're slower. They might be a little bit slower than some of the young ladies who may recover faster, because sometimes ladies have a community to help and talk about things, but oftentimes us men, we suffer in silence. We don't share our hurt or our experiences. So the recovery time may be a little bit slower and sometimes longer than a young lady who have experienced the same thing.
I agree with that. And something that you said that's so important is women, some of us are very vocal about our pain and our suffering and all of that, because the space has been created for us. A lot of people will say it's a woman's world, right? We hear that a lot. But for some men, there's not that many spaces created for men to be able to express themselves. And we've talked about this before, that there are men who are even in abusive, right, relationship. There are men who are being abused emotionally, all the types of abuse you can think about. Sexual abuse, they're being abused, but they can't talk about it because if they talk about it, first of all, it's seen as you're not masculine enough, because we live in a masculine society, as people would say it. So for a man to express himself, it's almost seen as, why would you do that? Like, why would you express? Even in the church, I've seen a lot of men in churches crying for help. They're crying for help to the pastor. They're crying, and this is what they're being told: man up, because you're the head of the home, and it's your job for you to lead. You're supposed to lead, wipe your tears. So a lot of men in churches are crying and they're dying in silence, but they can't speak up because no one is listening. And Brother Prater, I want you to talk a little bit about that, but I want to share a story with you that a pastor messaged me one time with this Dear Emily show, and he told me that he has a porn addiction, okay, struggling with porn and is in need of help. But out of everyone, this pastor is reaching out to a stranger, and I don't know his name because it's anonymous. This pastor is reaching out to a stranger to literally share his secret. So he's preaching to people daily, and they're expecting him to be strong. They're expecting him to man up, so he can't barely talk about the issues and the struggle that he's going through. And now he's reaching out to me saying, Emily, what do I do? I struggle with pornography, and before I'm intimate with my wife, I have to watch porn. Like, before I'm intimate with I literally have to watch that. And this pastor is saying, I've cried out for help and no one is hearing me. So I would assume that this pastor, it's a nice guy who is struggling. And a lot of times we don't think that nice guys or pastors struggle. So I want you to touch up a little bit on that and why that is and what we need to do to get rid of that mindset that people have.
Yeah. Oftentimes the nice guys, like I always say, we do put other people before us. And we're so easy to help other people fix their problem. But with our own problems, sometimes we either try to fix it ourselves, or sometimes we may think because we've helped other people, those same people will help us. And then when we don't get that in return, then we got to deal with that struggle where I can't tell a person what I'm dealing with, because, you never see Superman without his cape. You may see him with all the rest of his boots and outfit, but you never see him with his cape. And like you said, we don't want to show our vulnerability because it may make a person may feel that we're less than a man or even less than a Christian, And so with that, there are many people that deal with things, and that doesn't mean that you ain't saved. That doesn't mean that you don't love the Lord. Sometimes situation may cause a person to do something, and they end up spiraling out and doing some things or behaving some way that is outside of their normal character or outside of, God's will. But there is help. The key thing is, I always tell people, take one day at a time. How does an ant eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And be honest with yourself, forgive yourself, and continue to talk to God about it. And each time when that situation comes, take time to just slow down and do it for your best interest. And don't beat yourself up for your past mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I know that was a mouthful. It felt like I was coming at all the nice guys out there. But
No. That's reality. That's reality.
That's reality. Exactly. So, Brother Prater, now there are people they're nice guys who are married to unnice women. Okay, not so nice women. And I want you to advise those women, okay, who are treating these brothers out here like they're not good enough. Because there are men who are trying their best. There are men who are doing all they can. They know that they're the head of the home. They know what they're supposed to do to provide for the family, to love, like Christ said, love your wife as you would the church. So there are men who are literally trying their best to be the man that God has called them to be, or God wants them to be. But there are some women who are like Delilah. Okay, let's talk about Delilah. There's some women who are like Delilah, like they just can't get enough. This man is doing everything, and then a woman is not satisfied. Like she's not satisfied. And some of these women are women who are in churches. They have leadership roles. Matter of fact, some of them are the ones that are preaching every Sunday, and they're telling other women how to live in their homes, but they're doing the complete opposite. And they're married to nice men. They're married to good men who are doing all they can. So in that case, what would you say to these women? And to that man who is probably feeling like, I'm about to throw in the towel because I've done all I can.
Okay, I'm gonna make it real short. The two aspects. The first thing, you said a beautiful thing about a minister, a female minister that may be preaching to the church, but then when she get home, she tries to dominate in the home. Mm-hmm. Well, when you at church, true enough, that's your ministry. You're preaching, but also God wants you to understand that you are a wife. So you could take the cloth off. Mm-hmm. You being a wife does not mean that you're not ministering. You need to minister as a wife, not just in the pulpit, but also even in the bedroom with your husband. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that you have to allow that there cannot be any hurt or bitterness, because sometimes there may be some who may, let's just be honest, some may be harsh in the church because they're preaching out of bitterness, not mm-hmm. out of healing or peace. And so that same person bring that same spirit and bring it to the bedroom or bring it to the home and try to dominate as if that their husband is the demon mm-hmm. or the devil. Also, to even just share with that wife, regardless of their ministry or not, think about if you have a son, mm. would you want your son to marry a woman like you?
That's a question.
Yeah. And if you don't want your son to marry a woman like you, then you show him what type of wife that he needs to being that wife to his daddy. That sums it up.
Yeah. I mean, you said it perfectly well. And this is something that my mother has taught me. And for everybody that's watching, my mom is she's literally my role model when it comes to being a mom and when it comes to being a wife. Okay, so she's good. and she loves to pray. The woman can pray, okay? She can pray for hours, but she's not just praying, but she's taking care of her home. And one thing that she's taught me is church is church. Like when you go to church, you're serving God, loving Jesus in that moment. But when you come home and when you have kids, you're a mom who love the Lord, and you are a wife who also love the Lord. And you can't like bypass protocol, because a lot of times, sometimes we feel like you just have to serve God. But when you're married, no, God tells a woman, like, submit to your husband as you would unto the Lord. And then husband, love your wife as you. So I just wanted to share that and just give my mom a shout out, because she's an amazing mom. She's an amazing mom. I mean, the woman is, she's at 50, she looks good, okay? And I've been told she looks better than me with 5 kids. But she really set that tone. And I like what you said. If that was, if you were a woman and you had a son, would you want your son to marry you? Somebody like you, with that characteristic that you have, where you feel the need to be loudmouth, to cuss out your husband, like just be swearing, be disrespectful, just not being kind, because there are lots of unkind women. We're talking about nice guys, but you could also tell that I'm really passionate, because there are lots of people in churches that are really just faking it. And that's one of the reasons why divorce is so high in the church. And I always tell people as a coach that no one goes into a marriage with the mindset of 5 years later, 20 years of investment of my time, my body, my soul, my spirit, to just leave. No one goes into a relationship with that mindset of I'm going to leave, but something makes them leave. And some men have literally really tried all that they can to stay in these relationships, but it's really hard, because some of us women, and I'm saying us women, we don't make it easy. We don't make it easy for men. We don't make it easy for the nice guys out there, because one of the things I've noticed, Brother Prater, and maybe you have as well as you counsel people, is a lot of times for women and men, we take our trauma in the next relationship and we don't heal. And you mentioned that earlier on. You have unhealed person going into a relationship, and maybe this person is already healed, but you're unhealed, and you're going into a relationship with someone. It's pretty much you're setting yourself up for failure, because if you're unhealed, now you start to compare that guy to every other guy that you've dated, or you start to compare that woman to every other woman that you've dated, or maybe your marriage was really bad. Now you're like, I don't want to get married because all women are the same. And for some guys might just be like, I don't want to marry a woman. I don't want to marry again because all women are the same. They're just different shade, different shapes, different sizes, but a lot of people have that mindset. So I want you to give us a few advice, because we're almost out of here, but we're gonna have you back again and again, because this is so important, especially hearing it from a pastoral or Christian perspective. Okay, of what the nice guy is, the nice guy myth and syndrome, what that is and what it entails. So I want you to talk to some of the men that's going to be watching, to talk a little bit also to the women. What's your advice to them when it comes to understanding the lies, the myth of the nice guys, and talk to some of the women about if they do have a good man, have a good man, what are some of the things that they can do to keep that man?
Okay. First thing, some young ladies, they would respect the priest in the church, but disrespect the priest of the home. Being aware of that, being aware for the ladies, look at how you treat your husband. It's the same way you treat the pastor of your church. And if not, then there's a disconnect. You shouldn't be able to make a meal for the pastor, but yet and still you give your husband a cold bologna sandwich or cereal. That's that. Also, for the ladies, being honest with yourself. If there's a young man that you like, ask God to help you to discern what is your motive of pursuing that person. Do you want him for who he is, or do you want him because he's a good listener? So that means you just want to marry a counselor, not have a husband. And so with the men, number one, understand that it may be a struggle, but it ain't impossible. Understand the devil does not want you to link up with the one that God is saying is tailor-made for you. You know, and so understand that pursuit, because men are, you know, by nature, we workaholics. And so we can do manual labor on the clock, but that may be required for you to do the same thing for you to get your wife. So don't give up, even if it look like there's no one around. You just listen to God, because God can have someone come from overseas to move right next door to you. So you just understand, as long as you're obedient to God, it ain't your responsibility to figure out who it is or how it is. It's God's responsibility because you're obedient. You know, as long as you keep God first, everything that you're asking God for, it will chase you down. And that pertains to the purpose and plan that he has for you. So I would encourage each and every one, men, that good guy that may be watching, you think about it, if you have a close family, if you have cousins that you're familiar with, that you're fun with, female cousins, look at that being an example to you, because you're close to your cousin that's a female, but there's someone else's cousin that's not even related to you. That as long as you helping your cousin and ministering to your cousin, then God has set the scene for someone else to be ministering to their cousin that so happen to be your wife.
See, we could go on with this topic for and you know, we talk, so we could talk about this for hours. But I really like what you said, and you said something so important that people who are watching, especially if you identify as a Christian, to understand that there are so many women, and I've heard so many stories of women who reverence their pastor more than their husband. Like, I've heard so many stories that a woman will literally say, well, my pastor's coming over to visit, so you bring out the nicest of all things in the home. And then you have, when your husband comes home, there's nothing for him to eat. You want him to make his own food. You want him to do everything. But there's some women who are willing to literally take their pastor's clothes to the laundromat and do it. And if you feel like that's something that you need to do, there's nothing wrong with that. But just make sure that you're doing the same thing for your husband, and even better for your husband, because God is not going to bypass, right, protocol for you. You're still supposed, that man is still the head of the home. And some people don't even know that he's the pastor of that home. He's the pastor of that home. So like we have said, if a woman, if you marry a nice guy, be a nice woman. If you marry a goat, like most of us would say sometimes, you have to submit to that goat. And you have to be nice to that goat. So you have to know, like you said, discernment is so important when it comes to the person that you choose to do life with. But the truth is, Brother Prater, down the line, people have made mistakes. And we know that. Some people have, the enemy has a way of making something that's not yours to look like it's yours. And then at the end of the day, you end up being married sometimes to maybe not the one that God has for you. And some people are in that boat where it's like, I made a mistake. And we know that there's so many reasons why people get married. And it's not just for love. Like we all know that some people get married because they had a kid. And the Bible's telling you stop fornicating. So you're like, okay, I don't want to fornicate, so I might as well just get married. And for financial reason, America is hard. Okay. So a lot of people get married because they can have one income that the bills are being paid. Right. So there's so many reasons why people get into marriage. And some people know that they have probably got married to the wrong person, but they're there and they're trying to figure it out. And maybe down the line, there's some type of love somewhere. So Brother Prater, here I am. Here we are. We're having this conversation about the nice guy myth and some of the things that women can also do to be helpful to their partner, their husband that's trying. Or even if you're dating someone, you know that this person is nice. Like, he's just a nice guy. Don't think that he's faking it. And a lot of us have that mindset that this is too good to be true. Like, you have to be faking it. You can't be like, no, because of the previous experience that you've had, with other men. And like we said, we take that, like you've been saying, we take that into our relationship a lot. So I don't want to, I hope everyone here that's watching, that will be watching this, that you're learning a lot, because tonight we're talking about a little bit more about the church and honing in on the church, because we have an amazing pastor with us who, and a law enforcement officer, and someone that I look up to, that mentors me, that I highly, highly respect, Brother Prater. So give us a few last words before we call it on this episode.
I want each man and young lady that may be single, that may be looking for love, don't give up. Speak to God. Ask God first before you go to that one. Ask God to hear you. Keep your spiritual senses on high alert for you to recognize who is for you and who ain't for you. And also for those who are already in a relationship, number one, as long as it's not abusive, we don't tolerate abusive. But if you with someone and you realize, wow, there may be some troubled waters, the main thing of it is there's praying to ask God to help you to even deal with that person issues without dealing with that person personally, as well as asking God to help you to take the bitterness or any type of regret out of it. Because even with that, it could be a beautiful ministry, even in the midst of what you thought was a bad decision. The main thing of it is that person may have something more in common with you after the healing, and vice versa. And so even in the midst of, just make sure that you do things God's way. Seek God. Don't ever exclude God out of a plan, out of a decision, out of a conversation. And if there may be a conversation you may have to have, make sure that you ask God to help your verbiage as well as theirs, and also ask God to set the scene, set the groundworks. And somebody have to use wisdom to know when to shush.
That was for me. I like that. Sometimes I don't know when to stop. But this is so good, and these are some of the littlest things that can save a marriage, and that can save a relationship that we overlook a lot. And that's part of the reasons why divorce is so high, especially in the church. In the church today, divorce is high. So I want to thank you so much, Brother Prater, for joining us today on today's episode. We're talking about the nice guy myth and the lies that people would say about nice guys. And you really just beautifully put it so well on what that is. And because you are a nice guy, okay? You're a nice guy. Everybody that's watching this episode, Brother Prater is all the way from Dallas, Texas, and he is a nice man, a nice godly man. And I can attest that on your character. You're a man with great character, which matters the most. So I want to thank you so much for joining us on Dear Emili on today's episode. I'm honored. And it's a privilege to be able to talk to you. Thank you so much, Brother Prater.
I'm honored. I thank you all. Thank you for the audience. And most importantly, we definitely be praying for this ministry, and it's long overdue.
3 years later, right? God is like, keep moving. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, for everyone that has watched this episode, we have been talking about the nice guy myth, the nice guy syndrome with Brother Prater, all the way from Texas. I hope you took notes, and I hope you're learning a lot from today's episode. Because we talked a lot about the church and what can get done within the church, about nice men and then nice women, and how to even live a blissful life, that we've been talking about. So Brother Prater, thank you so much for joining us. You can send us stars on Dear Emily, okay? Send us stars, and you can also send in your donation. The number will be on the screen. And thank you all once again for joining Brother Prater and I today for today's show. We will see you next time on Dear Emily. Thank you all.